In the 1970s, television had a way of turning actors into extended family, and Demond Wilson was one of those faces welcomed into millions of homes every single week. As Lamont Sanford on Sanford and Son, he wasn't just playing a role, he was becoming part of the rhythm of American life. Viewers watched him argue, reason, and roll his eyes, with a familiarity that felt personal. At the height of that connection, when fame, money, and opportunity were flowing freely, Wilson made a decision that stunned Hollywood. He chose to step away, not because the work dried up or the audience vanished, but because something inside him was changing. Now, following his passing at the age of 79, his story feels less like a celebrity timeline and more like a reflection on purpose, identity, and the courage it takes to redefine success on your own terms. Growing into a role that defined an era. When Sanford and Son premiered in 1972, few could have predicted how deeply it would embed itself into popular culture. Adapted from a British series, the show became something distinctly American, fueled by sharp humor, social commentary, and unforgettable performances. Demond Wilson was only in his mid-20s when he took on the role of Lamont, the grounded son to Red Fox's outrageous Fred Sanford. Acting opposite a comedy veteran like Fox was no small task, yet Wilson matched him beat for beat. His restraint, timing, and emotional balance made the comedy work. Lamont wasn't just the straight man, he was the heart of the show. Week after week, millions tuned in, laughing not just at the jokes, but at the recognizable dynamic between a stubborn parent and a patient child trying to keep life together. Fame at full volume. At its peak, Sanford and Son was more than popular, it was dominant. Tens of millions of viewers watched every episode, making Wilson one of the most recognizable television stars of the decade. Fame arrived fast and loudly. There were interviews, appearances, and expectations that this success would naturally roll into decades more of the same. For many actors, this level of visibility becomes the ultimate goal. For Wilson, however, it was complicated. While the audience saw stability and success, life behind the scenes was far more demanding. The pressure to remain consistent, funny, and available took its toll. Hollywood can be intoxicating, but it can also be relentless. Wilson later reflected on how easy it was to lose yourself in the pace of it all. Even surrounded by applause, he began to sense an emptiness that success alone couldn't fill. Continuing the journey beyond one iconic role. When Sanford and Son ended in 1977, Demond Wilson didn't disappear. He moved directly into new projects, including another sitcom and later a rebooted series with a different ensemble. He also explored film roles, proving he wasn't confined to one character or format. These years showed an actor still engaged, still capable, and still respected within the industry. Yet something had shifted internally. While the work continued, the sense of fulfillment did not. The roles paid the bills and maintained visibility, but they didn't answer the deeper questions he was beginning to ask. For Wilson, acting was no longer enough on its own. The industry offered continuity, but not clarity. That growing disconnect would soon lead him toward a path that surprised nearly everyone watching from the outside. A spiritual turn that changed everything. Sometime after his peak television years, Demond Wilson experienced a profound spiritual awakening that reshaped his entire life. This wasn't a superficial change or a public rebrand. It was deeply personal and transformative. He became an ordained minister and began dedicating his time to faith, teaching, and service. Wilson spoke openly in later years about how fame had nearly pulled him apart, how the lifestyle and expectations of Hollywood distracted him from what he believed truly mattered. Despite having what many dream of, money, recognition, and influence, he felt incomplete. Faith gave him structure, meaning, and peace. He didn't abandon his past, but he reframed it. Acting became something he had done, not something he needed to keep doing at any cost. Walking away, when staying would have been easier. One of the most remarkable aspects of Demon Wilson's story is not that he found faith, but that he acted on it. He turned down opportunities that conflicted with his values and stepped away from mainstream acting for nearly 2 decades. In an industry obsessed with relevance, this kind of absence is often seen as risk or failure. Wilson saw it differently. He wasn't afraid of being forgotten because he was focused on living truthfully. During this long hiatus, he wrote books, preached, and built a life far removed from studio lots and casting calls. This was not an escape, but a deliberate choice. He traded constant visibility for inner alignment. For many, that trade would feel terrifying. For Wilson, it was liberating. A quiet return with meaning. After many years away from acting, Demon Wilson returned briefly in a later life dramatic role. It wasn't a blockbuster comeback or a nostalgic revival tour. It was a small, thoughtful project that clearly resonated with him on a personal level. This final performance felt less like a return to fame and more like a full-circle moment. He came back not because he needed the spotlight, but because the story meant something to him. There was no urgency, no attempt to reclaim past glory. It was simply another chapter, handled with intention and calm. That choice reflected the man he had become, someone no longer defined by applause, but by purpose. It was a gentle reminder that stepping away doesn't mean closing doors forever. Sometimes it just means choosing when and why to reopen them. A legacy that reaches beyond television. Demon Wilson will always be remembered as Lamont Sanford, the patient son navigating chaos with humor and heart. That role remains timeless, still airing and still finding new audiences decades later. But his true legacy goes far beyond reruns. He demonstrated that it's possible to succeed in entertainment without letting it consume your identity. He showed that walking away from fame doesn't erase your accomplishments, it reframes them. In a culture that often equates visibility with worth, Wilson's life stands as a counterexample. He valued integrity over momentum, meaning over applause. That kind of legacy is quieter, but it lasts. It speaks not just to actors, but to anyone who has ever questioned whether the path they're on truly reflects who they are. Remembering the man, not just the star. At the end of his journey, Demon Wilson was remembered not for scandal or controversy, but for character. He was a father, a man of faith, an author, and an actor who brought joy to millions. His passing marks the loss of a familiar presence, but also the completion of a life lived with intention. He reminds us that success is not a single definition handed down by culture, but a personal choice shaped by values. His story encourages reflection. It's okay to change direction, to step back, to listen to that inner voice even when the world expects something else. Demon Wilson's life tells us that legacy isn't only about what you achieve, but about how honestly you live once the cameras stop rolling.